We're here this morning with Tim Meno of At Home Neighborly Nurse. And Tim started his agency about 12 months ago. And Tim and his wife went through training about a year and a half ago, I think, if that's correct.
Mm-hmm.
And we're here this morning just to chat with Tim and get a customer testimonial and hear in Tim's own words how he likes running a home care agency, and perhaps more importantly, how well Home Care Seminar prepared him to run, operate, manage his own home care agency on a day-to-day basis. So let's say hello to Tim. Good morning, Tim.
Good morning, Gavin.
Tell me about running a home care agency.
Well, first of all, I would highly recommend Gavin's company, Home Care Seminars. It is a great, I simply didn't have the capital to even consider franchises. And, I'm a pretty independent-minded person anyhow, so I'm not sure if I would have gone down that path. But it's important to have a partner that's going to help kind of put that map in place with you and get a framework together. I would have the amount of time it would have taken me to get up and running had I had to create the whole infrastructure and all the paperwork myself. Would have easily added months, and probably I would have wasted thousands of dollars in attorney's fees reviewing these things that I put together. And working with Gavin, I was really able to bypass much of that, essentially copy the infrastructure he has in place and tweak it a little bit to fit my needs in my state. But it was definitely a value for us.
I know one of the questions, Tim, that is frequently asked is, how soon can you get clients after you're open and up and running? And you've been into this now, officially you've been open 11 months, and how many clients do you said you had 15 clients, is that it?
Yeah, typically over the last month or so we've been managing about 12 to 15 on a weekly basis. I think we landed our first client after about 90 days, probably 60 to 90 day window. And that's the million-dollar question. How long is it going to take you to get your first client? And I don't think anybody can answer that for you. A lot of it may be luck and timing. Of course, you create that by showing up every day. But I think we were just under 90 days when we picked up our first client.
Well, and I think you touched on a good or you made a good point, and the fact is that you can create that luck. I think the harder that you work, the more successful you are. And we talk to people occasionally, they say, well, how many hours do I have to put in for running my own business? And because we aren't a franchise and you don't have a noose around your neck saying you have to do this X number of hours, the more hours you put in, the luckier you get.
Right.
And would you say you average a 40-hour work week, 50-hour work week?
Probably closer to 50 hours. I will say this, though, when we started the agency, I was winding down my old company. So for the first month or so, I probably wasn't committing 40 hours a week to this at-home neighborly nurse. So maybe we would have picked up a client a little bit faster. I'm pretty ambitious and have 4 little ones at home that I've got to feed. So, I'm easy putting in 50 hours a week now. But with that being said, the business works around my lifestyle a little bit. I'm not tied to my office. If my son has a soccer game or a band concert, I make it to those. Of course, I have the cell phone with me while I'm at them, but I have the freedom to be wherever I need to be for my family and run the business at the same time.
Which is one of the upsides of doing it the way that you have. The training, the 5-day training that you went through, do you feel that it's sufficiently, now that you've done it for almost a year and you've got clients, did home care seminars sufficiently prepare you for the rigors of running your own home care agency, or did, looking back now that you've got a year under your belt, did we do a good job for you?
Absolutely. Yeah, we're very happy with home care seminars. I think I've recommended several potential clients of yours to your company.
Thank you very much.
And in the time I've been in the industry and gotten more acclimated with the industry across the country, I've really not come across another organization like Gavin's that can offer this type of training at such a value price. The franchises out there, I think, are going to cost you at least twice as much, at a minimum, probably multiples of that.
Yeah.
So I've not seen anything that really compares.
Name brand recognition in home care. You're a year into this. And this is another question that comes up, and I know this is one of the things that franchises push pretty consistently is, if you go with our franchise, our name brand recognition is going to bring you scads of clients. Is there any truth to that?
Well, I've never owned a franchise, so I don't know if their phone starts ringing on day one, but I really have a hard time believing that. This business is really local, grassroots relationships. It's referral based. I really think the personal relationship is a lot more important than the brand. I'm an owner-operator along with my wife, and I think families really appreciate that. I really don't think they're wooed by a corporate identity. In fact, in many ways, it might even scare them off because they don't see their mother or father or grandparent as just a number or a cog. They see them as an individual, and if they feel like they're working with a company that is ran by people that they have a personal relationship with, I think it really brings a comfort level. And I've told my clients that are dealing with a discharge from a hospital or a skilled nursing facility, and they're going through that Chinese fire drill because they've never done this before. Oftentimes we'll tell them, hey, think of me as your new stepbrother, and we'll get through this over the next couple of weeks together.
Good advice. Outstanding advice. Can you think, and this is kind of a curveball for you, and I'm sorry for that, but now that you've run your agency for a year, do you have any advice that you would share or impart with somebody that's just thinking about getting into this business? I mean, do you think it's going to still be a good business in 10 years? Is the market too crowded? Do you think there's still room for growth? I mean, what advice would you give somebody that's thinking about starting up a new business? And they may be looking at a home care agency to start, or they might be looking at a sub shop.
Well, there's no inventory in this business, so there's very little fixed cost. I would say my biggest mistake in the first year, and maybe it was more of my mindset, I would say I wasted some money on marketing and advertising that I purchased out of fear. I purchased it out of, well, I've got to get some clients going here. I can't afford not to buy some advertising. And from what I can tell, I've been able to track very little business out of my advertising. This is really a word of mouth business. Get out there and pound the pavement, network with everybody in your community, and it'll just start to work one day. You might think over your first 30 days or 60 days or 90 days, hey, I'm going to all these networking events. Hey, I'm stopping by every nursing home in town. Why aren't I getting any phone calls? Well, the phone just starts to ring. For us, it seemed like it was about 90 days into it. and buying the advertisements in newspapers, or the local town planner calendar. There's probably a place for that, don't get me wrong, and everybody's budget is different. But for me, I feel, looking back on it, I spent some of those dollars out of fear, and they really weren't necessary.
Interesting. That's would validate what we have found ourselves owning the home care agency for 14 years, and that is that print advertising in home care just really doesn't do it.
And I think to tie that back to your original question is, you asked me about the national brands and the franchises, and what that brings to the table. I think it brings very little to the table, because my advertising brought me nothing. So how does...
Why do they have better advertisers?
Right.
Is that the case?
Right.
Is hiring Rachel Ray to put together a cookbook for seniors, which is exactly what Home Instead Senior Care actually hired Rachel Ray to write a cookbook for seniors. I think if I were a Home Instead Senior Care franchisee and I was paying my 2 or 3% advertising royalty fee, I would be really distressed over the idea that they spent my money for a cookbook that is probably not going to bring me any additional clients.
Right.
But it did put a lot of money in Rachel Ray's back pocket,
right.
Probably.
Right. And don't be scared of the competition. There's a reason why everybody wants to get into this business, because there's a lot of opportunity out there. We're sitting here in a 7-story office building. I have a competitor down on the 3rd floor. And we're all just out there to help as many people as we can. And there's plenty of seniors out there. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. The baby boomers really haven't started calling all that much yet. Maybe a few, but that deluge has really...
the wave is still out in the ocean.
The wave is still out there.
That's a great point. Well, Tim, I think that is a testimonial video. That is absolutely terrific, and I appreciate it, and I think Tim Meno is going to continue to absolutely rock Cleveland's senior care market, and his agency is going to continue to gain clients. He seems to be tracking quite nicely with what our understanding of a startup agency should be, and Tim should be somewhere in he's coming up on his 1st-year anniversary, and he's 12 to 15 clients, and that's exactly where he should be. So he's doing great. He's going to continue to prosper, I suspect, and thank you very much for your time today, Tim.
Thanks, Gavin.